No one really saw him. He spent his days sitting near a green dumpster behind a public library, always with a camo cap pulled low over his eyes and a worn backpack at his feet. Children would walk around him, adults would look away, and shopkeepers were used to shooing him off like part of the urban scenery. But inside that man, with the unshaved face and slow steps, lived more history than any book in the library he never dared enter. His name was Elias Reed. Former Marine, Iraq War veteran, twice decorated and once forgotten by his own country. Since he returned home, life had felt like it was stuck on pause. The war had eaten him from the inside. He suffered chest pains, coughed blood in silence, but never accepted charity. He salvaged books from trash bins, polished his boots every morning, even if he had nowhere to go. Disciplined to the end, he'd whisper to himself. That morning, the sky was its usual shade of grey. Elias watched the street with the focus of a man who survived ambushes. That's when he saw the little blonde girl, no more than 7 years old, skipping toward the school across the street with a pink backpack. A black car pulled over. One man got out, too quickly. The other stayed behind the wheel. Elias stood up. When the man grabbed the girl's arm, time slowed for Elias. Combat instincts flooded his body. He ran like he hadn't in years, crashing into the man with full force. The girl broke free and ran. The car sped off. The attacker collapsed onto the pavement. Elias dropped to his knees moments later, gasping, clutching his chest. But when the sirens arrived, they didn't find heroes or villains, just a homeless man with bloodied hands and an unconscious body at his feet. And in that moment, everything Elias had lived, saved, and lost would be used against him. The first officer didn't even ask questions. He saw a girl crying, a man unconscious, and a disheveled veteran kneeling beside them. That was enough. Within seconds, Elias was slammed against the squad car, handcuffed, coughing blood through clenched teeth. "Did you attack him?" someone asked, but the answer was already decided. No one asked for his name. No one cared why he was there. They noted he was homeless, potentially violent, involved in a public altercation, and that the child had fled the scene. The man who had tried to grab the girl was taken to the hospital. Elias, straight to the precinct, without a single witness to defend him. "Assault with aggravating circumstances," they said. Elias just lowered his eyes. Inside the holding cell, time stretched like the desert he knew so well. Same silence, same abandonment. He knew he couldn't post bail. No ID, no family. He coughed again, harder. That metallic taste came back. Pain pressed into his ribs. He'd felt this before. It meant something inside was giving up. But Elias wouldn't ask for help. He never had. By late afternoon, a court-appointed lawyer opened the cell door. "Let's go, Mr. Reed. The judge wants this resolved fast. There's a report accusing you of attacking a civilian in broad daylight." Elias looked up at the ceiling. No medal would save him now. But across town, a little girl had just started telling the truth to someone who was finally listening. Her name was Lily. 7 years old, blonde braids tied tight each morning by her mom, and eyes that carried both innocence and weight, the kind only found in those who've seen too much. That night, she barely touched her food. When her mother asked what was wrong, Lily cried, "The man on the sidewalk saved me, but the police took him away." Her mother froze. "Are you sure?" Lily just nodded. The next day, they went to the police station. The mother asked to speak with someone in charge. She was ignored at first, but persisted. Finally, a skeptical officer listened. Lily told every detail: the black car, the man who grabbed her, the dirty man who came running to stop it. She drew it all, pointed out where it happened, repeated, "He didn't do anything wrong. He saved me." They cross-referenced the incident report with a nearby store's security footage. There, clear as day, was Elias charging toward the attacker like a human missile. No aggression, just intervention. The arresting officer said nothing. The prosecutor said even less. But something shifted. Later that afternoon, Elias sat alone in his cell, unaware of what was unfolding, until his lawyer returned, no longer rushed, but solemn. "Mr. Reed, someone wants to speak on your behalf, a little girl, and she's ready to go all the way." The trial had begun behind closed doors, and the unlikeliest witness was about to turn everything upside down. The courtroom was nearly empty that Tuesday morning. Just a few attorneys, 2 board officers, and a young prosecutor flipping through the case file with a look of routine satisfaction. To everyone there, it was just another quick hearing. A homeless man, no medical records, accused of assaulting someone in broad daylight. The judge entered without looking up. Elias was brought in, handcuffed, his detention uniform loose on his shoulders and his eyes sunken but alert. Then the side door creaked open. Everyone turned. It was Lily. She wore a light blue dress and held her mother's hand tightly. She walked into the courtroom as if stepping into something sacred, not out of reverence for the law, but for the truth only she seemed to carry. Elias's public defender leaned in and whispered something to the judge. The prosecutor raised an eyebrow, curious. "Do you know why you're here, sweetheart?" the judge asked gently. "Because he saved me," Lily answered, pointing to Elias without hesitation. She told the story, how the man in the car tried to grab her, how the dirty man appeared and stopped him. Her voice was steady, her eyes unshakable. The prosecutor requested the security footage that had just been added to the defense's case. When it played, silence overtook the room, not out of shock, but because there was nothing to refute. Elias wasn't the attacker. He was the shield, a sick, forgotten man who had used his last ounce of strength to stop what no one else saw. The judge removed his glasses and rested his hands over the file. For the first time, someone addressed Elias by name, with respect, but just before the gavel fell, Elias swayed, a tremor running through his chest, and no one yet realized how urgent that moment truly was. Perfeito. Aqui está a tradução do tópico 5, corpo em guerra, mesmo em paz, mantendo o tom emocional, simbólico e fiel ao estilo cinematográfico. Elias's release came without celebration. The judge dismissed the case based on third-party self-defense and ordered his immediate freedom. There was a soft murmur of surprise among those present, but nothing more. Lily hugged him on the way out, teary-eyed and relieved. Elias nodded in gratitude, but lacked the strength to return the embrace fully. With each step he took, it felt like he was crossing a minefield inside his own chest. Outside, the sun blazed across the sky. Elias walked silently to a shaded bench, sat down carefully, and coughed hard. This time, not just blood, foam, pain, exhaustion. He knew what it meant. Ever since Fallujah, that metallic taste returned whenever his body was failing, but he wouldn't ask for help. He never had. He simply looked at the sky and smiled, like a soldier who had completed one last mission. 2 days later, Lily and her mother returned to the library with a fresh lunch, clean clothes, and a note with their phone number. But he wasn't there. Not that day, not the next. They searched the nearby shelters, asked around. No one had seen him. It was as if Elias had vanished, like dust swept away by the wind. What Lily didn't know was that Elias, now free, had chosen silence over a hospital bed. He found refuge in a narrow alley where the city's noise couldn't reach. There he wrote short messages on scraps of cardboard, simple phrases as if leaving final instructions for whoever might find him. One of them read, "If that little girl smiles again, then it was worth it." But as the city moved on and Lily kept searching, Elias's heart was beginning to go quiet, and the farewell would come sooner than anyone expected. The next morning, the caretaker of an abandoned church found the body of a man curled beneath the altar. His arms were crossed over his chest, a letter gripped in one hand, and a worn military cap resting over his heart. There were no signs of violence, just a peaceful expression, as if someone who had finally completed his mission. The city called emergency services. Just another homeless man dead, they said. Just another number in silence. But when they searched his few belongings, something caught their attention. A torn newspaper photo of a smiling blonde girl, folded with care, and an envelope with the name Lily written in steady, deliberate handwriting. Inside was a short letter, direct, but full of something rare: gratitude. Elias thanked her for her courage, her truth, and for being the only human being in years to look him in the eye as if he still mattered. News of his death didn't make headlines, but it reached the right people. When Lily's mother heard, she went to the morgue to confirm. She broke down in tears when she saw Elias covered in a thin sheet. Lily held the envelope close to her chest and cried without a sound. The next day, they decided he wouldn't be buried like a nameless stranger. They contacted local veterans, reporters, anyone who would listen. And for the first time in years, someone made noise for him. They organized a simple funeral, folded flag, lined medals, and a bench marked "For anyone who owes thanks in silence." Lily arrived first. She brought yellow flowers and the letter he had left. She sat by the casket and whispered, "You saved me. Now it's my turn." More than 20 strangers came that day, each one with a scar, each one with an invisible debt. But no one knew that this was only the beginning of the real tribute, because Lily would never forget, and she would turn that goodbye into a ritual of forever. Years passed like leaves blown by the wind, quiet, inevitable, unnoticed. Lily grew up, changed schools, neighborhoods, even her posture, but she never broke her promise. Every year, on the same date, she returned to the veterans' cemetery. Her pigtails became neatly tied hair. Her pink backpack turned into a university satchel. But the flowers, always the same. Sunflowers and daisies, Elias's favorites. He once said they were the only ones that keep facing the light, even when they grow from darkness. The gravestone was simple, just like he was. Elias Reed, U.S. Marine, never left an innocent behind. Lily had that carved with money she raised selling baked goods at school. At 13, she talked about becoming a lawyer. At 16, she wrote articles about justice for homeless veterans. At 18, she spoke at the city's Veterans Day ceremony, sharing Elias's story without filtering the pain, the silence, or the system's betrayal. Some mocked her at first. "That's the girl with the bum," they'd say. But she never stopped, because deep down she knew no one had ever looked at her with such faith as that broken man who gave her everything. Each flower placed on his grave was a reminder that memory doesn't need a stage or a crowd. It only needs truth. With time, other names began to appear in that cemetery, other forgotten veterans, and Lily made sure to visit each one, brought them flowers, told their stories, whispered, "You're not alone." It was as if Elias's act had planted invisible roots in her, roots that were now blooming into gestures no one expected from someone so young. But on a cloudy afternoon, nearly 10 years after his death, Lily found something different on his grave. An old envelope sealed with a military insignia, and a letter Elias had left behind, marked, "To be read when the world forgets." The envelope was slightly damp from the years, but still intact, sealed with red wax and stamped with the Marine Corps emblem. Lily held it carefully, like someone holding sacred remains. She sat by the grave and broke the seal with trembling fingers. Inside was a single page, handwritten in Elias's familiar style, slow, firm, almost carved into the paper. "If you're reading this, it means time has passed. It means my mission ended, and maybe you still remember me. But this letter isn't to thank you. It's to ask you something. There are many like me, forgotten, silent, invisible, men and women who gave everything and now sleep on the sidewalks of the cities they once defended. If what I did for you meant anything, carry that forward." Lily read each word with her heart aching. Elias wrote of inner battles, of nightmares that never faded, of war brothers who had taken their own lives after returning to nothing. He spoke of broken promises, of the burden carried in silence, and the fear of dying without leaving a legacy, except for that one moment, that one act, when he stepped forward for her. And he ended with a line Lily would never forget: "Heroes don't need statues. They just need not to be forgotten." Lily cried in a way she hadn't in years. That letter wasn't just a message, it was a final call to action. a last field order from a sergeant who, even in death, was still leading. That afternoon, she pulled out her phone, turned on the camera, and, shaking, began to tell Elias's story, not as a victim, but as a symbol. And as that video made its way online, the whole world would finally hear the name Elias Reed. The video Lily posted was simple: no cuts, no background music. Just her, sitting next to a modest gravestone, holding a time-worn letter. She told everything: the attack, the trial, the abandonment, the silence. But she also spoke of bravery, sacrifice, and the honor of a man who, even discarded by his country, chose to protect. "He saved my life," she said, her voice steady, "and died before anyone knew his name." The first few hours, only a few likes, but by the next day, it exploded. Veterans shared it, teachers discussed it, journalists called. Elias's story spread across the country like wildfire. News features, interviews, marches for veteran care. His grave became a pilgrimage site. Children brought flowers, elders left medals, and someone anonymously installed a bronze plaque over his stone with the line from his letter, "Heroes don't need statues, they just need not to be forgotten." Lily was invited to speak before Congress. She declined. Said what needed to be said was already out there. Instead, she created a non-profit in his name, Reed's Honor, dedicated to supporting homeless veterans. Every dollar raised, every shelter opened, every life saved was an echo of that one gesture Elias made that dusty morning. A gesture that changed the entire arc of her life, even if the world only noticed too late. But Lily didn't grieve anymore. She had understood something. Some lives don't need an audience. They only need witnesses, and she would be his, always. Every year, on the same day, there she was, with Elias's favorite flowers, reading his letter aloud. Not for him to hear, but so the world would never forget. And in the silence between her words, there was something stronger than medals, more enduring than speeches. The sound of a legacy that refused to die. You walk past hundreds of people every day and never know what they carry in their eyes, in their hidden scars, in their calloused hands, shaped by silence. Elias Reed was just another forgotten name on the streets, until someone dared to look beyond the dirt, the overgrown beard, the torn jacket, and saw a man who, even abandoned by the country he served, chose to protect, chose to act, chose to honor. This isn't just the story of one veteran, it's the story of our failure as a society, of a system that cheers for soldiers in war but turns its back when they return broken. Elias died with honor, but he didn't have to die alone. Because sometimes the greatest act of courage is simply refusing to let someone be forgotten. So here's the question that stays with you. How many invisible heroes are you ignoring every day? And more importantly, what will you do now that you've heard his story?